Today we're going to be talking about the gun control after this
terrible ass massacre. Fucking 58 people, I think, dead and 500 injured.
That's
So
actually
I think we
ridiculous.
should probably just establish the facts first, because I've been hearing rumors that this gun was illegal.
No, yeah, I've heard it's illegal,
It's
and then I heard
illegally
legal.
purchased. I've heard illegal. I've heard illegal. Apparently, he stockpiled a bunch of weapons
Ben
too.
Shapiro said legal, and then I heard illegal by like 4 other sources.
Yeah, I
so
think
it's
it's
hard to say.
I think what happened was I think they raided his apartment and they found a bunch of other guns. Like, I think what they're trying to do is determine now whether this is like motivated or premeditated. I think the evidence right now is leaning on the premeditated side, because I think the guy's actually a millionaire, I think, or something like that too. He didn't he actually been playing this, I'm pretty sure, because he'd been stockpiling weapons and ammunition, which is kind of weird. Guy was not a Trump supporter, by the way. He's actually more of a Democrat, apparently. There's photos of him going to a couple marches and stuff like that. As like according to like his like Facebook page, he appears to be.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
Because like just even
appears to
like
be
shooting
more
at the
Democrat.
country concert, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
there's more like probably on average more white people there. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it was really like a race thing or anything like that. I saw the stupid ass article that came out, and someone was saying like the white privilege of the lone shooter, and apparently that only white people are.
I got rattled on that. Though.
Yeah, really, really dumb. And like, I mean, you can literally quickly Google. On Wikipedia has an entire list of mass shootings that I've just taken, lone wolf mass shootings that have only taken place in Asia, Middle East, and Africa, and I'm gonna just assume they're not white people, like at least most of them. So, like, there's a guy in Palestine who killed 4 Israeli tourists. There's even the fucking guy in Nice, man, killed 80 people with a truck. So.
Yeah, no.
You know, it comes to like whenever these events happen in the United States, people always talk about like how it's just happens in the United States. It's just a United States thing.
It's probably happened way more in Europe.
Yeah,
in the last year.
I think with the gun issue, I think it's just part of the culture. I think Americans have a gun culture because Canada, we're number 10 for gun ownership in the world. 1 in 4 Canadian households owns a gun, according to Stats Canada. So,
I have a gun like back home.
yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. So. I mean, obviously we can't own the same level of weapons as people in the United States, but you can own semi-automatics, you know what I mean? You can still do a lot of damage. I think people, like, for example, today, I had someone today actually comment on the stats too, and she was saying, well, I was like, well, you know, because they're talking about Australia. Obviously, when gun control comes up, they bring up the UK and Australia, which basically confiscated all privately owned firearms. I'm not in favor of that. I think that's really dangerous. I think it sets up a perfect opportunity
like, the argument there is, like, how many people live in Australia compared to the United States?
Yeah, well, not even just that. It's just it all comes down to like the Second Amendment is about resisting government tyranny. It's not about defending yourself. It's not about hunting. It's not about you know preventing crime, which by the way happens in the United States. Like you know, obviously no CNN or any left wing news media. New York Times doesn't even report on how many guns actually prevent crimes. I should say. Actually, only Brett Barton, I think, with Fox News are the only news organizations, and maybe Daily Wire. But actually talking about how much crimes are stopped in a year, each year with guns, and it's actually a lot. So I think that's something to consider as well. But when it comes to the Australian model, the problem with that I have is that immediately after Australia implement this across 1 year or 5 years, I think they had an increase of like 6,000% of guns knife deaths. Sorry. And actually now, if you look at the statistics, when they've actually posted this graph.
Oh, I saw it.
You saw me post this graph. Actually, if you actually look at the homicides in Australia, while gun homicides have gone down, knife homicides have gone up almost exactly proportionately. Like, legit. It even says on the Australian government website, it even says that the amount of homicides has not gone down or up relative to after taking everyone's guns. All that's changed is that people have switched from guns to knives, and the problem that I have with that is you're basically penalizing the law-abiding citizen.
So you're saying that there's just as like since they got rid of the guns,
all that's changed is people have just switched from guns to knives and killing people.
So you're saying like the knife killings have went up?
Oh, they proportionately gun deaths have gone down. Yes.
That's what
if you actually look at the graph, if you look at the way the graph goes, currently in 20, I think from 2015 to 2017, they curve outwards like this.
Okay.
So it's just proportional.
I didn't like.
So knives have gone up and guns have gone down, and the curves are almost identical.
Yeah.
So it's like mathematically speaking, or graphically speaking, I guess it's almost proportional to what's happened. So people have just switched from guns to knives, and now the citizens are defenseless. So looking at like NRA members, if you look at NRA members, for example, the United States National Rifle Association, people often target them because they're a big Second Amendment lobby group. They lobby for Second Amendment rights all the time. They're pretty much the only organization that does that. NRA members, I mean, you have to be an NRA member if you want to own an assault rifle or anything like that. You have to be an NRA member. You have to register.
Well, like, you gotta think about like machine guns have been like since what
Yeah, and actually, if you actually look at mass shooting data, a lot of mass shootings actually don't use automatic weapons.
Well, because they've been illegal since like.
No, some states you can still own them. In the United States, you can still own some machine guns in some areas, but it's just you can't hit anyone. I've fired an automatic weapon before. You can't.
Yeah.
This isn't Call of this isn't Call of Duty. This isn't fucking Battlefield. People think that you can just pick up a gun and shoot it. You can't. Loading bullets into a magazine is difficult. It's not easy. Even filling up the fucking magazine. Even I've fired plenty of guns in my life, and I can tell you right now that even using a semi-automatic AR-15, which is like considered to be like an easy weapon to shoot, or a Glock 9.
You gotta think about every fucking rifle is a semi-automatic. Like,
yeah.
Pretty much.
Oh yeah. Even in Canada, we have tons of them too.
Well, we got like that's like
the AR-15 is the model they always go after because that's the most popular one, and it's difficult to fire. You can't just go into a crowd and fucking spray and pray. It's not going to happen. It's you have to aim. You have to aim, and every bullet you shoot, the gun's going to go up more, and you shoot more. Using automatic weapons aren't practical, honestly. Even like special forces guys, even military people will tell you that.
I know it's a federal law. It's illegal in states. Federal.
Oh, it is. Wow.
It's federal. It's illegal.
I think in some states you can though. I think
it's probably.
I think in Texas you can.
But like the federal law, I think it's since.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I think it's been since like the like.
And even still, a lot of like even if you look at like gun legislation in the United States, it doesn't work in the United States. I'll say it works in other countries like the UK and Australia. I'll agree to a certain extent that doesn't work because obviously in Australia they haven't had a mass shooting since they got rid of all the guns. But if you look at the United States, all you have to do is look at Chicago. Chicago is one of the worst cities, if not the worst in the United States for gun crime, and they have the strictest gun laws. You cannot own. I think there's only a very select amount of guns you can legally own. Yet more people were murdered in Chicago last year than in our entire country. We had, I think, 467 or 400 around there homicides by gun last year, and they had like 700 in 1 year. They have one almost every. I think one every day.
Like enforcing gun laws, if they're still getting the guns illegally.
Oh yeah, they have a culture, and like again in Europe, they're just going to use trucks, or a bomb, or chemicals, or something. They're not going to. Evil will find a way. It's always going to find a way, and the highest mass shooting is 50 people. The most trucks is 80 people.
It's ridiculous. You can buy all these like contraptments to make it like an automatic.
Yeah, you can modify. People do that in Canada too. People do that too. Yeah. Well, you have to know what you're doing at least. I mean,
It's like a spring. Like you can literally remove a spring and it becomes automatic.
Okay.
Like for some guns.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With that stuff though, I think it's just a cultural thing. It comes down to the culture. I think a lot of the gun crime in the United States is a cultural thing because. As I posted, I shared it to Facebook. There's a graph by Ben Shapiro tweeted this. Yeah. The amount of gun ownership in America has gone up, linearly, and the amount of gun homicide has gone down in the United States. Yeah, while population is increasing too. So I mean that basically just proves the idea that more guns cause more crime. That's not true. With homicides, it's not true. And again, I don't understand when it comes to with people on like the left and stuff like that. They'll attack the gun owner, the responsible gun owner. I don't understand that. If you want to attack a criminal, and there are some gun laws in the United States I don't agree with, like the gun loophole, for example. That's you go to a gun show and they don't check ID, they don't check your mental health background, anything like that.
But it does go through. You still have to be registered through the.
You have to be registered for the gun show, but they don't do a background check. I think.
That's what they said. That's what Ben Shapiro said, that they do actually have a gun show.
Okay.
It's like if I'm selling my gun to you,
and again, I can
consumer by consumer. There's no background.
That's what I mean. Well, that's what the shows are, though. Like I've been to the gun shows before, and you can literally just go on there and be like, or you just say, "Meet me up back," and I'll give you $2,000 for this AR-15 or something, right, or this AK. That's what I think the problem is. That the gun shows set up that sort of climate for that to happen, which is like obviously not good. Obviously, there should be more mental health checks, more of this. But
there definitely should be people that shouldn't be able to own a gun. Like I agree with that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Or even in a household. I think if you live with someone.
I do get the understanding of having the right to own one.
Yeah. Well, if you look historically, and I've made this case today on Facebook actually as well. If you look at what happened, for example, in China under Mao, what happened was he actually slowly took away gun rights of citizens, and then when all the guns were confiscated, he basically massacred millions of people. This is happening in Venezuela right now. If you actually look about 2 or 3 years ago. They actually, the government banned private firearm ownage for citizens, so you can't own a firearm legally anymore. And what happens now is that the government sort of went from socialist to this sort of fascist, authoritative regime. And what's happened now is when protesters protest the government, they just get shot. Because when the civilians don't have guns and the police do or the military does, it's a slippery slope. It could just lead to all kinds of nasty things happening. This has happened in Vietnam. This has happened in China. This has happened in Russia. This has happened now. It's happening in Venezuela, and in the Australian government. I made this case. People say people really have a short memory of history. They'll say it's Australia. It's the Australian government. It can never turn fascist. It can never turn authoritative. They're a developed country. Well, you don't know that. In the next 50 years, who knows what could happen with democracy? You can use democracy to turn into fascism. That's what happened in Germany. It's what happened in Turkey, for example.
You gotta think about it, 70 years ago was World War II. Right?
Yeah, exactly. People have a really short memory, and to say that these proud countries like America, Canada, it can never happen. Our government can never turn totalitarian. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. People picture the Third Reich happening in a day that they just decided to round up all the Jews and kill them. No, it took years. It took years.
Happen in the next 50.
Yeah, of course. That's perfectly reasonable. That's a perfectly reasonable assumption. I've had arguments with people about that before, and I do not understand where they're coming from. I legitimately do not understand.
So you're not going to be alive in 100 years. How would you know?
How we've had all these historical examples of this happening, and they still are saying, no. This time is going to be different. This time is going to be different. Look at our government. Our government in Canada right now, we're slowly inching away our freedom. We don't even have freedom of speech now in this country. So what's next? I legally am required to call a man a woman if they identify as that, and I can subjectively feel that they're a woman, and I can't and that's an invasion of freedom. So that's already totalitarian. That's legitimately totalitarian in nature. That's exactly from 1984, having forced compel speech. It's gross, and it doesn't. These things happen. Nobody even cared. Nobody cared. People passed this law, Bill M103, not being allowed to make reasonable criticisms of Islam or run the risk of being labeled an Islamophobic or a bigot or whatever, a racist. Even though Islam's a religion, but you still get called racist.
No, I literally I grew up like my dad's Muslim, and I met nice Muslim people, but I've also met you know what I mean. If you grew up Muslim in Western culture,
sure. You understand.
You understand
But even in the UK, for example, they've taken a couple polls on the Muslim populations there, and I think it's 70%, something like that. I don't know. Someone has to check me on that, but a good percentage of them think homosexuality should be outlawed right off the bat, even in the UK.
Yeah. That's also Christians and shit too.
Yeah. Well, if you actually look at not so much in America. Actually, they did a study recently that said that actually gay marriage approval in the Republicans, which are the right wing Christians, they've gone up. The approval. I mean, look at last year at the Republican convention. They had their very first gay speaker, Elon Musk's partner, the guy who helped founded PayPal. I can't remember his name, but he was their first gay speaker to speak, and so I actually see that changing actually with Christians. I do agree, 20 years ago, you would never, definitely not. But I think now, because of things like Modern Family, the problem is, I think with people that with that stuff is that they just don't understand.
The thing is, even if you talk to, I met, when I was traveling, I talked to, a Syrian guy, who came over, and he's I came over and I adapted, but he's my family could never come over and adapt. He's 100% not. I get why you don't want all of these people
coming in. You want young people who are coming in. You want young people particularly because their values are more moldable. They're more susceptible to being changed by the culture. But it's not true all the time. But I'm just saying, my mom came to Canada when she was young, so she's Canadian. You know what I mean? She's part of the Canadian culture. She assimilated 100%.
Well, he didn't come when he was young. But he came over and you know what I mean?
You have to respect the culture. You can still have your traditions, but if your tradition is beating gay people because they're gay, then
it's different. If you have your culture in your own little area and it doesn't affect art, you bring it in and you're
well, it's little Italy in Toronto, or they have Chinatown, for example. It's obviously a very Chinese culture hub. You know what I mean? But again, they're not trying to force the culture outwards. They're not trying to force it outwards on anyone. No, and we need immigration in Canada anyways because we have an aging population and a reduced labor force. So these are actually
the next 10 years there's gonna be more old people
than young people, which is really bad when you have a healthcare system, and when you age, you exponentially increase more use of the healthcare system, which is not good. So the healthcare system's gonna be strained to its max capacity. Basically, it's already at its max capacity. We've just been pushing it upwards every year. So
that's it's gonna happen.
But back to the gun legislation. A lot of people don't even understand guns. I had a girl today saying that we should ban semi-automatic weapons. I was that's almost every gun, except for bolt-action rifles, lever-action rifles, pump-action shotguns. Everything else is pretty much semi-automatic. Pistols are semi-automatic. And I was we have this in Canada, right? That we actually have a good amount of guns in Canada. We're pretty high up in the world for gun ownership. So
I do agree, how we have to go get a gun license.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. But that's because it's a right in the United States. Here, it's not a right; it's considered to be a privilege. Although our Constitution was still founded to understand like the whole government tyranny thing, and not so much anymore because they don't really give a shit about the Constitution anymore. But we like their country, the American government, the American like system was literally set up to be based on a love of guns and love of freedom because they were a bunch of farmers. The founding fathers basically a bunch of farmers, and they managed to fend off one of the most powerful military at the time that had the most advanced weapons, the most advanced soldiers, and they still won. So their whole idea of the underdog, using a shitty gun, being able to fend off someone else is valid. I think that's how the system was set up, and that's how it meant to be.
Especially like I could see now, like especially like with this transgender movement or whatever. If they start making like if these 5-year-old kids start to feel
it's nuts. It's insane. They have 40% suicide rate. I don't know why they want to encourage that.
80% of kids that are like confused about the like
gender will end up gravitating towards the biological gender. Yeah, I know.
80% of them grow out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, man. I have friends that thought they were like, I
lived like I'm not even lying. I had a dollhouse.
Yeah, I was never like that. But I have a friend who grew up thinking she was a boy. She's like she's a Tom girl.
That's what I'm saying. Like every Tom girl you met when you were younger
thought they were a boy or wanted to be.
Think about I could name like 10 that were Tom. Like I knew from kindergarten. That were tomboys and the girliest girls you ever meet now.
Oh, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Or they're still somewhat masculine. They're still women. They're still like women. You know what I mean? They're still biologically women.
I could see this. Like if that happened in the States, I could see why you want a gun. If the government came in your head like, oh, you got to start making your.
Well, that's Ontario. That's Ontario. Actually, that's in our country that we got.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying that it like
Oh yeah.
Like it's pushing. It's pushing.
Yeah. It's pushing to the States. For sure. Yeah, and they're trying to like normalize this mental illness, which is just terrible. But going back to the gun control, I think like another big argument you'll hear is they'll say like there's a video going around and it's like. What would happen if the Second Amendment was alive today with a mass shooter and they saw some guy using a freaking powder rifle or he's putting powder in it? Obviously, you can't kill as many people because he's using a powder rifle. But that logic is like really, really bad because it's a fallacy because you're basically saying, well, the First Amendment was invented only when the printing press was around, so that doesn't mean we can only have does that mean it only applies to the printing press and newspapers? It doesn't apply to the internet? It doesn't apply to cell phones? Of course not. So obviously the Second Amendment wasn't. As the military technology evolved, basically the U.S. the way they look at it is any gun that the military could use or any weapon that the military can use, I should be allowed to use to defend myself to make it fair. And you actually have militias in the United States. You have groups of militias that are formed that are anti-government movements and anarchists and stuff like that. And they actually have their own groups where they just sit around with guns because they're scared the government's going to try and pull something and then they're not going to be able to defend themselves. Because in Australia, where the civilians have no guns, what would stop the government what would stop the head of the military from going? We're going to take this law. We're going to introduce. You know what? We don't like Muslims in Australia. Let's round them all up.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
How are you going to vote?
How are you going to round up all the Jews?
How are you going to vote that away? You can't. You don't have a gun. How are you going to enforce it? When someone's pointing a gun to you and says you're going to do this, what are you going to say? No, I'm going to vote you away. Democracy goes out the window when people like the best way to sum it up. Actually, it goes back to the Holocaust. Was some old World War II vet. It's a picture of him. It's a very famous photograph, and he's holding up a poster, and it says, he's obviously a gun rights activist or whatever, and he literally says, and this quote's always stuck with me, it says, I once saw a movie where the police had guns and the citizens didn't. That movie was called Schindler's List, and I think that sums it up pretty perfectly. And if you look historically at when the government has been armed and the civilians aren't, well, you're basically at the government's mercy. It's like Dinesh D'Souza says, like a rope versus a ladder of opportunity. You know what I mean? With that kind of system, you have a rope where the government was supposed to help and pull you up. But if they want to let go of the rope, well, then there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas with a ladder, you go at your own pace. You climb up the ladders of society, and that's how you achieve middle class status, for example, or something like that. But with the firearm things, it's just like, there are crazy guns out there. There's like semi-automatic.
I definitely think they should implement something on how to like
address the problem.
Or like at least like have like a class, like teach them how to use it. You know what I mean? Like half the people that probably have guns don't even know how how to do the safety.
Exactly.
If it's that easy to get a gun, some people are just going to be scared and buy one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, gun sales have actually skyrocketed right now after the incident too, which sucks.
Which is probably
people are scared. People are scared. If some lunatic wants to go out there and murder a bunch of people, obviously people want to be able to defend themselves, right? Like, I don't know. It's just terrible. Really terrible what happens.
Evil.
So
it's literally
it's evil. Yeah, it's definitely evil. Some guys, and the whole like, oh well, is he a terrorist? Is he not a terrorist? We don't know that yet. We have to actually decide. People are calling it race thing. They're trying to bring race into it. They're trying to bring religion into it. We don't know. We don't know. I think
you
it's
want to wait for the
premeditated.
facts to come out,
Yeah.
and then you make the decision.
Yeah, and
And
this
go from there.
this whole, but then on the other side, but then people use that same argument when a shooter yells "Allahu Akbar" and then blows people up, and they say, or they goes and murders a bunch of people, and they say, well, we gotta wait for the facts. No, I could probably guess in that scenario that he's probably doing something with ISIS or doing something with a terrorist
Exactly,
group.
yeah.
Like, there's a difference. There's a difference between some guy waking up one day and shooting a bunch of people for no reason versus a guy who actually did it because he was religiously motivated or.
I get, like, I would consider this a terror attack. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, it has to be politically motivated to be a terror attack, technically.
But, like, it's creating terror. Like, I guess, like, it's just
No, but no, like the actual like definition of
Yeah,
terrorist
yeah,
is
like-
like it has to have a political motivation. So like
political or religion. Or
yeah,
whatever.
so like
It could be politically moved. Like, it could
well,
have
we
been a
don't know
crazy
what his
leftist.
politics are.
Well,
Yeah,
we know.
yeah, like the guy the Bernie Sanders supporter who almost killed Rand Paul and actually shot
Yeah.
that other gunman. He wounded the guy. Actually, was in the hospital for like
Yeah.
2 weeks. I forget the governor. He was governor of some state, and you know that was a terrorist. That guy actually hated Republicans and hated right-wing conservatives and went out to go kill them that day. That's politically motivated. Yeah, I didn't see CNN blowing up headlines about that. I didn't see all my friends posting all this crap.
I hate when, like, celebrities like to give their opinion. Like,
Yeah,
they
your
actually
opinion's
know-
worthless. You live in a bubble. You don't live in a
know
real
what
world.
the heck's going on.
No, of course not. Like, it's
They're
like
not even educated. Like, half of
Yeah.
them probably didn't even finish high school.
no,
Shut
they
up.
don't know what they're talking about at all. Politicians just keep their heads out of politics because they don't know anything. They literally don't even know what they don't know. So it's just like, yeah, it's pretty gross when people try to put in their opinion. Even Hillary Clinton today, Hillary Clinton put out saying something about silencers or
Yeah.
something like that, and even
She doesn't
Pauly.
even know that a silencer. It doesn't.
Well, it's not
make
even called. It's not even
doesn't
called a
make it
silencer.
quiet.
No, it's not even called a silencer. It's a suppressor because it doesn't silence the sound. And you're absolutely right. A silenced shotgun. If you put a silencer on a
It still
shotgun,
sounds like a
it's
jackhammer.
louder than a jet engine. It's still 160 decibels, man. I like legit. It's insane. You
Like, it is a lot. It's
You're not- and the
a
guy
lot
was-
quieter,
the guy-
but like you're gonna
the,
still.
the
like,
guy
hear
used a
it.
machine gun, dude. You're not gonna putting a silencer on there. It's not gonna make a difference. You would hear it. You would
Did he use a
legitimately hear
machine
it.
gun?
Yeah,
I thought
heard
it was like a semi. He like.
Oh, I guess
it
he
was like-
modified it
He
then.
It
Yeah.
was a modified like semi-automatic.
Well, using automatic
It's like
weapons,
even-
so
yeah.
they're loud. They're loud as hell. They're really loud.
Well, like even if you see the video, like you can hear it. Like, you know what I mean? You can
Oh
hear
yeah,
gunshots.
yeah. Silencer wouldn't change much at all. Like the guy literally sat in a window and just parked out and just.
Suppose he had a couple hotel rooms and he was like he must have had this thing planned.
Yeah,
Or,
well,
like,
there's even now apparently the authorities are even looking for multiple gunmen. There's actually been like that's a little bit more in the conspiracy theory territory, but like apparently at least this is just from like what I've seen on Facebook and stuff like that. Apparently there's like at least rumors of multiple gunmen because this guy apparently carried a bunch like something like a couple hundred pounds of equipment. He had legit multiple guns and bags of ammunition, or I guess crates of ammunition and stuff like that too, which is pretty whack. So
it's either that or he had days.
or he just had days
You know what I mean?
premeditated.
Like,
yeah, definitely had premeditated time. And like,
I
in
could
which
see
case
that
it's
more.
definitely
I would
manipulated.
say like it's probably more that than he's working with like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's
like,
probably more likely. Exactly. Like he definitely like probably spent like a good 10 days figuring this crap out.
Yeah,
And
like,
then,
they should like you know how long he's had those hotel rooms. You know.
I think
You can
we'll
look
get to the
at
bottom when they start talking to family members and friends and see what made this guy go off. Basically,
When
right?
they talked to his brother, and he was just like, "I would."
Maybe he
just as
snapped.
shocked as
Yeah,
you.
he could have
like,
just
you know what I
snapped.
mean?
You know what I mean? It's like it's like what happens if your best friend did that or something like that? You know what I mean? Like you never know, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember in like high school, this girl that went to high school with that, which is a kleptomaniac, or she got caught stealing from like a store. You never know. Last person you ever expect. Last person you'd never assume this girl would do anything like that at all. But she's a problem, you know what I mean?
Just like stealing stuff.
Just can't help herself. Just like literally got caught by the police stealing a Dollarama, and we were like, "What? This girl? They're like, really?"